Hello there and welcome to World Panorama, where we get you a roundup of the week's top international stories. I'm Tracy Shilshi and here are the headlines. The US and Australia announced changes in their visa regimes. Hassled Indians seek clarity even as government asks both nations to review their policies in their own interest. Snap general elections are announced in Britain. Prime Minister Theresa May claims her decision is driven by the need for a strong leadership to complete Brexit. And in Turkey, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan succeeds in his push for executive presidency. Nation responds with mixed reactions over his victory with celebrations and protests. Our top story this week. Now, it's been a tough week for Indians working or hoping to work in the US and Australia. While Australia abolished the existing 457 visa program, the US President Donald Trump signed the executive order to reframe the H-1B visa. Indians are the biggest beneficiaries of both the programs, and the H-1B visa became the hot topic for Union Finance Minister Arun Jaitley during his meetings with US Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross in Washington, D.C. Now, Jaitley asked the US administration to review the policy for India in its own interest. Here are more details.
It started on Tuesday, first with Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, who announced that he would be abolishing the existing 457 visa program, currently used by temporary foreign workers to gain employment in the country. Turnbull said he would put jobs first and Australians first, signalling a reduction in the occupations available to skilled foreign workers and raising the threshold to qualify.
The fact is that the migration program should only operate in our national interest. This is all about Australia's interest. This is about jobs for Australians. It's about growing the Australian economy so that Australian families can realise their dreams, that Australian businesses can invest and employ and get ahead. That's what it's all about. And so this rigorous focus, this laser-like focus on our national interest will ensure that where skill gaps arise and can't be filled by Australians, then foreign workers can come in, but not otherwise.
Australia also raised the bar for handing out citizenship by adding a new Australian values test and raising the standard for English language.
You'll need to have competent English. That is a vital requirement. Not a requirement at the moment, but we all know that the key to successful integration into the Australian community, to economic success, and every success, social success, in becoming part of the community is being able to speak English.
This was then followed by the US, where American President Donald Trump signed the executive order to reframe the US H-1B visa. The reforms will seek to ensure that random entry-level people from outside America do not get a chance to go there for work. The US President said that the reforms will ensure entry on merit of the visitors rather than on application.
Right now, H-1B visas are awarded in a totally random lottery, and that's wrong. Instead, they should be given to the most skilled and highest paid applicants, and they should never ever be used to replace Americans.
The United States had a provision of granting H-1B visa through lottery among the eligible applicants if the number of applicants surpassed 65,000 in the first 5 days of the year. Although this was also based on merit, till now Indian applicants accounted for 70% of H-1B visas. The Indian government says it is in touch with the Trump administration and making a full assessment of its impact on Indian professionals. The MEA also said that changes announced by Australia will be negligible on the Indian workers. Meanwhile, Commerce and Industry Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that India can question the US if the new visa policy forces Indian professionals working over there to return home.
Now, many of the countries have given their commitments to the WTO. For instance, in the H-1B visa case, the US has committed a certain number, even in the WTO, and therefore we can question them if they don't stick to those numbers.
She also said that it was not at all true that professionals in developing world were taking jobs in developed economies.
In the last 2 or 3 decades, having not been going to create such professionals is now being used as an argument saying you're taking away our jobs, which is not true at all. You don't have such personnel.
But the worry doesn't end there, because as of Thursday, New Zealand too announced that it is introducing tougher requirements for skilled overseas workers as it tries to control immigration numbers that have reached an all-time high. The largest number of new migrants to New Zealand come from India, China and the United Kingdom. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Going to Paris next week.
Okay. Well, as you can see, we have our guest joining us here. We have KP Nayar of the Telegraph joining us, as always, to give us an insight really into this big story. Starting with, of course, Australia. Malcolm Turnbull had visited India just a few days back. And right after that, he goes back home and he announces, of course, abolishing this visa policy for which a lot of Indians are the beneficiaries. What does this kind of signal in relations between both the nations?
Well, in the case of Australia, there has been a problem about Indian immigrants for some time. A couple of years ago, if you remember, students were attacked, Indian students were attacked. Indian taxi drivers and other workers were assaulted. There was one technology professional also who was killed, although it appears to have been not a hate crime, a criminal act. So there has been this resentment simmering about Indian presence in Australia, it would appear, and it is easy to rationalize that this is a logical progression from that situation to rationalizing the arrival of immigrant workers.
Yes, because Malcolm Turnbull did say that also making it mandatory for a certain level of English that migrants have to know, which in turn, at least if you look at it from his point of view, it helps in the integration perhaps of everyone in a better way. At least that's the kind of explanation that he's of course giving. But talking about the H1B visa issue, because that is of course a bigger concern here in India, nothing surprising really on Donald Trump's move, because it was in the offing. A lot of people, the industry, IT industry especially, has been quite concerned about it. But even now it seems quite vague, isn't it?
Well, about Australians wanting more proficiency in English, I think as long as the Australians don't want Indians to pronounce English the way the Australians do, I think it should be okay. But on the issue of Trump's executive order on Tuesday on visas, you see, a lot of the things about Trump, it is more sound and fury than anything significant. In this case also, what he has done is only asked, he has asked departments of Labour, Justice, Homeland Security and State to sit together, study the existing visa procedures and suggest changes. H1B came into focus only because after signing the executive order, the president mentioned H1B as an aberration about how it is misused and all that. But in the order itself, there is nothing about H1B. So, I mean, I know of couples in India, people advancing their marriage and all that, fearing that, I mean, a techie from US getting a bride from India, advancing the marriage, assuming that rules may change and he may not be able to take his wife there. I think these are overreactions, because even in Tuesday's executive order, there's no change. See, like in many governments, it is like forming a committee. And this group, interdepartmental group, will sit down and evolve things. Of course, eventually H1B program may be affected, but it will take, my assessment, it will take some time. It will happen during the Trump presidency, because I mean, he has to show something, right?
Yes.
I said it's sound and fury signifying nothing because he has not been able to build the wall.
Yes.
He has not been able to stop those people
ban
from
on
Muslim.
people coming in
yes.
from Muslim countries.
So
yeah.
something he has to show. So it will happen, but
Yes.
there's no need to
The
panic.
impact may not
Yes.
be as much as how India is. Of course, Arun Jaitley as well, he is of course there, and he spoke to Wilbur Ross, and he has been given the assurance that nothing has been finalized as yet. So there's really no need to panic. But, you know, does it still mean that, you know, like you were pointing out yourself, there could perhaps be a change of plans for people who are planning to go there, or the people, like, for example, green card holders, the ones who are waiting, in fact, for their green cards. The processes may get slower. Do you think that could perhaps have an impact on that?
Well, the effort is actually to speed up the process. I mean, sometimes people, it takes 10 years, 15 years for people to get a green card.
Cards, yeah.
The effort is to actually speed up the process. Even on the H1B, Trump's earlier decision to end expedited processing was actually to speed up the process of granting H1B visas, because there was expedited processing with extra money being paid by companies, which delayed the normal processing, and there was a huge backlog. But you know, it's good to take preventive action, and what Arun Jaitley has done, he has taken the right course, because you know, we should not sit waiting for things to happen and then react to it.
Yes.
And one very good thing that the finance minister Arun Jaitley has done is to talk to Wilbur Ross, because Wilbur Ross is someone who knows India. You know, there's something called the US-India Business Council. He has been a director of the US-India Business Council, which was created by Dr. Henry Kissinger in 1975, his initiative. He has been a director of USIBC. He has dealt with Indian companies. You know, he had an interest in SpiceJet through another firm of his, which buys companies, mergers and acquisitions and all. So he knows India, he knows the Indian market.
Yes.
So what the finance minister has done is to go to somebody who knows what he would be
Instead of getting an empty assurance, he's gone to someone who actually knows what he's talking about, especially that particular market.
Also someone who will follow up, you see.
Yes.
Especially what the Arun Jaitley mentioned about how it is doing the American economy a lot of good. This present Commerce Secretary is someone who can understand and appreciate and act on it.
So you've got Australia, you've got the US, of course, the H1B visa issue, which is still very vague, but you understand that this whole Australia first, America first, and even someone like a New Zealand as well is, you know, hoping to tighten immigration laws to a certain extent, visa laws at least to a certain extent. Is this a trend that we're seeing in different countries as well? And if that is so, is there a worry for India eventually at some point?
You see, it's a global trend, partly fueled by the 2008 global financial meltdown, from which the world has not recovered.
Yes.
I mean, India has recovered. In the first place, India was not so seriously affected, but the rest of the world has not recovered. Then oil prices have fallen. It's good for India.
Yes.
But economies are suffering.
Yes.
For example, you know, where we are in Delhi, this hasn't got much attention. It's not just Australia and New Zealand and the US. Saudi Arabia issued an order 2 days ago, last week I think, where people employed in malls, they have a certain percentage has to be Saudis.
Yes.
That is going to affect a lot of Indians. It's created a big issue in South India, in Kerala, where a lot of workers go to Saudi Arabia and work there. So this is a global trend. Ultimately, the solution is to improve our own economy so that we don't depend on external factors. Make in India, that sort of thing is what will work.
All right. We'll leave it there for now, Mr. Nayar. Thank you as always for joining us. In fact, some saying that perhaps this may lead to a reverse brain drain. So let's see how that goes. Still ahead on the show, though, we turn our focus to the UK with the snap polls being announced. Will it make Prime Minister Theresa May stronger? Details of that coming up.
In 1981, when I joined Archaeological Survey of India, I was given to explore the district Rewa, extreme north of Madhya Pradesh. Orient Stupa. That was a very exciting discovery by me. That site is a very important site. Today it is a nationally protected monument.
Watch Eureka with Dr. Fanikant Mishra, retired regional director at ASI Kolkata, only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. The main political parties in Britain are actively taking part in campaigns for a snap general election on the 8th of June. This after members of Parliament in the British House of Commons gave their backing on Wednesday to Prime Minister Theresa May's call for snap polls. May claimed that her decision was driven by the need to provide Britain with 5 years of strong and stable leadership to see the country through its negotiations with the EU. Here are all the details. Prime Minister Theresa May surprised allies and opponents when she announced her plan to bring forward an election that was not due until 2020. After addressing a rowdy session of the House of Commons on Wednesday, May won the support of 522 lawmakers in the 650-seat parliament for an election on the 8th of June. Only 13 voted against.
And every vote for the Conservatives will make it harder for those who want to stop me from getting the job done. Every vote for the Conservatives will make me stronger when I negotiate for Britain with the European Union. And every vote for the Conservatives will mean we can stick to our plan for a stronger Britain and take the right long-term decisions for a more secure future for this country.
With this country, we have a tradition of having very short election campaigns. So in that respect, it's nothing out of the ordinary. And that's what's happened in previous elections. We have effectively a 6 to 7 week period. The British people will get the opportunity to hear the programme that the Conservatives will offer and indeed the others, and also make that choice about who they actually want as the Prime Minister and who they believe will do the right thing in terms of Britain's negotiations with Europe.
There have been huge disagreements between the main opposition parties and the Conservatives in terms of Brexit amid Scotland's strong demand for a second independence referendum. Critics of an early election accuse May of taking advantage of low ratings for the main opposition Labour Party. May will be going into the election holding 330 of the 650 seats in the House of Commons with a working majority of 17. The main opposition Labour Party has 229 seats, but many of the party's MPs are estranged from their leader, Jeremy Corbyn. But Corbyn is in lying low, taking on the Prime Minister in Parliament and outside as well.
The Tories approach Brexit on the basis of threatening the whole of Europe with an offshore tax haven. We approach the issue on saying there are 6 lines that we put on negotiations to ensure we do have trade and relations with Europe in the future. That is the responsible. That is the way forward. And we will have a Labour government that will invest in our economy through a national investment bank. That bank.
Britain formally triggered the 2-year Brexit process on the 29th of March. The European Commission now says that Brexit negotiations will not start until after the elections. But Downing Street said it will not affect May's Brexit timetable. Other European leaders too have welcomed the elections, saying that the polls will not delay the Brexit process.
The German government does not expect the election to interfere with the process of negotiations with Britain on leaving the EU.
This will be the 9th snap general election for Britain since the 1920s. Theresa May, who did not face a vote against Andrea Leadstone for party leader, will now seek and likely achieve a whopping personal mandate. Political experts believe that since becoming Prime Minister, May has positioned herself as on the side of the people, while the polls show the UK is slowly unifying around Brexit. June 8th is perhaps then, by that argument, a given for the Conservatives. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. And now to Turkey, where President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's push for an executive presidency succeeded with just over 51% voting for it. The win was met with both celebrations and protests across Turkey.
It's the dawn of a new political system in Turkey as its parliamentary democracy gets replaced with an executive presidency, with Yes campaign winning a narrow majority of 51.3%. The historic referendum victory now hands President Recep Tayyip Erdogan sweeping new powers.
Our exceptional nation once again went into the ballot boxes with maturity and expressed their opinions on constitutional change, which has been accepted by Turkish parliament.
Accepting the people's mandate, the Turkish Prime Minister too joined in the celebrations, saying the referendum's result have opened a new page in democratic history.
At this point in democracy, with this vote, we open a new page. Everyone must be sure we will use this result for the welfare and peace of our nation.
But the protests were held in many places across Turkey against the referendum result. The opposition parties have questioned the legitimacy of referendum, criticizing High Electoral Board for making the vote controversial. Turkey's High Electoral Board had said it would count ballots which had not been stamped by its officials as valid unless they could be proved fraudulent.
We respect people's decision, but the decision is shadowed by High Electoral Board. The referendum has become an open debate in legal terms and in people's conscience.
Turkish residents too are questioning the results of Turkey's referendum. Three of Turkey's biggest cities, Istanbul, Ankara and Izmir, all voted no to the constitutional changes.
I don't think this is enough because the statistic result of the referendum is just 50-50. It's obvious that large part of the society does not accept this referendum.
Turkey will not turn to the new presidential system until 2019, when Erdogan's current term ends and fresh parliamentary elections will be held concurrently. Turkey has followed the parliamentary system since the Republic of Turkey was founded in 1923. Bureau Report, Raj Sabha TV.
And now let's shift gears and bring you up to speed with some international news from around the world in our segment Globe Watch. France is all set for the first round of its presidential elections, with Marine Le Pen going head-to-head with Emmanuel Macron, Jean-Luc Mélenchon and François Fillon. The first round of voting on Sunday will be a closely fought battle between the four major candidates. Marine Le Pen is running on an anti-EU platform and has vowed to clamp down on immigration to make France more French. After Sunday's vote, the top two candidates will progress to a runoff on the 7th of May. Just days before the elections, a police officer was killed and two others severely injured in a shooting incident late on Thursday on the Champs-Élysées shopping street in Paris. The Islamic State claimed responsibility for the shooting. The gunman was later killed by officers. He has been identified as a 39-year-old French national who was known to security officials. The Pakistani Supreme Court ordered an investigation against Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif in the Panama Papers case. The court also ordered Sharif and his two sons to appear before the joint investigation team that will submit its report in 60 days. The case relates to alleged money laundering by Sharif in 1990s when he twice served as Prime Minister to purchase assets in London. China launched its first cargo spacecraft on Thursday, adding another step towards establishing a permanently manned space station by 2022. Tianzhou-1 cargo resupply spacecraft will dock with the orbiting Tiangong-2 space lab, provide fuel and other supplies, and conduct space experiments before returning. It can carry 6 tons of goods, 2 tons of fuel, and can fly unmanned for 3 months. On Friday, South Korea said that it remained on alert over North Korea ahead of the highly watched anniversary of its army amid heightened tension on the Korean peninsula. South Korea is holding its annual joint military drill with the United States. Tensions have risen sharply in recent months after North Korea conducted 2 nuclear weapons tests last year and carried out a steady stream of ballistic missile tests. And all the updates from the world of sports in Sports Action.
Barcelona were held to a 0-0 draw in Wednesday's quarter-final, which sealed their elimination from the Champions League. Barca rattled up 19 shots at goal but only managed to test Buffon once, as talisman Lionel Messi sent 4 shots off the target. Italian champions Juventus barely gave Barca a glimmer of hope of repeating their historic turnaround in the last 16. Barca will have little time to mourn the Champions League exit as they visit arch rivals Real Madrid on Sunday in a potential title-deciding Clásico. Manchester United reached a Europa League semi-finals for the first time after beating Anderlecht 2-1, but at the cost of potentially serious injury to Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Ibrahimovic had to go off after damaging his right knee late in the game at Old Trafford and may not play again this season, while United also lost centre-back Marcos Royo. The victory means Mourinho's side remains on course to claim the only major trophy missing from the club's collection, but the injuries could prove costly, particularly with United having re-energized their push for a top 4 finish in the Premier League by beating Chelsea. Trailing 3-0 and down to 10 men, Ajax Amsterdam scored 2 late goals to overcome Schalke in Europa League quarter-finals. The 4-time European champions, leading 2-0 in the first leg, appeared to be on the way out as Schalke wiped out deficit in just under an hour and then scored again early in extra time. The Royal Blues dominated the match and looked well capable of ousting their Dutch opponents, who fielded 2 17-year-olds in a side with an average age of under 23. But Schalke suffered a shocking defeat, which follows Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund's elimination from the Champions League this week. 2-time boxing world champion Canelo Alvarez has taken to the ring to train for his upcoming fight against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. The 26-year-old Mexican-born Alvarez will meet 31-year-old Chavez Jr. on May 6th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Tennis superstar Serena Williams is taking maternity leave through the rest of 2017. She captured her record 23rd Grand Slam tournament singles title at Australian Open in January. Her victory over elder sister Venus Williams broke a tie with Steffi Graf for the most Grand Slam singles championships in the sport's modern era. Serena has not played since then due to a knee injury.
And finally, residents off the coast of the south shore of Newfoundland, Canada were treated to a spectacle of the first iceberg and sea ice drift of the season. The massive chunks of floating ice were witnessed off the coast of the towns of Middle Cove Beach and Ferryland in Newfoundland. The region is commonly referred to as Iceberg Alley and delighted residents over the Easter holiday weekend. The largest iceberg measured some 151 feet in height. We're leaving you with these images. We'll see you again same time next week.